Marshman. I'm sure the name Schwarm rings a bell. Paula grew up in Duanesburg and has been a supportive member of the Duanesburg Historical Society for quite a few years. The name of our program tonight is going to be Journey of the Schoharie Creek. Paula?
Please tonight, if you can't hear, but this is wonderful to have a microphone. So my fascination with the Schoharie Creek started when I was in college taking geography, and my interest was physical geography. And I remember one of my professors saying that the Schoharie Creek is only 12 miles from the Hudson, so it makes a circuitous route. So this, sorry, this is the Schoharie Creek, following all up to the Mohawk River, just so you're oriented. So that's only 12 miles to the Hudson River, but I always say that water is always searching, for its lowest place to go. So here it starts its 93-mile journey to the Mohawk River, even though it is less than 12 miles to the Hudson River if you head east.
Paula, there is a laser on that, if you can figure it out.
No, I can't. So I was interested in finding the source of the Schoharie Creek. Does anybody know where it is exactly? So here I'm heading out of the village of Catskill, and you're looking up at Indian Head Mountain, and then Twin Mountain, and then Sugarloaf is on the other side. So we're on Route 32 and 2A. So Palinville is 2 miles away, and Hunter is 12 miles, and I'll be heading up to Hunter Mountain. So this is the first part of the journey. I've kind of split the Schoharie Creek up into 3 sections. The upland section here in the mountains, and then you'll see the other sections as we get closer. And so we're getting closer here. And then you'll notice that the shapes of the mountains appear a little bit different, but you can still see some of the similarities. And the Catskills, as some of you may remember, it's a dissected plateau and not really a mountain area. This is Platte Clove Church, and it's now a community center. And east of the church, you start to go downhill very rapidly, and that means you're changing into a different watershed, which is the Platte Creek, and which has a very short journey to the Hudson River. So now we're even closer as we look where the Schoharie headwaters originate. So this is all the Indian Head Wilderness area, and again you'll see Sugarloaf, Twin Mountain, and then Indian Head is kind of off to the side. So I'm a wetland person from way back. My first job out of college was working for the New York State Wetlands Inventory. So I always find them to be quite magical places, really. So this is the wetland at the base of the mountain. As you can see, I've gotten quite close. So the tiny rivulet that you see here is the Schoharie Creek. And the sign, just so you know, says New York State DEC Speedies Permit. Speedies, as you know, it means the State Pollution Discharge Elimination System. So the reason there's a Speedies permit here is because just to this side of the creek is Camp Tashbar, which is a camp for kids. This is the same view off the road, which is called Dale Lane, if you ever get up that way, which is off of Platte Clove Road. And this creek supports a very healthy aquatic community due to a great deal of forest cover. This is the opposite side of the bridge looking west, and this is really what we would call a mature emergent wetland rimmed with spruces, black spruces here, indicating a really healthy ecosystem. Roaring Kill Brook enters a bit further west, and as you may know, the Schoharie drains a good portion of the northeast Catskills. Now we're moving under Route 214, just east of the village of Hunter. And there are several streams flowing south off the Windham Range, which is to the north, along Flat Clove Road. This is Bridge Street in the village of Hunter, looking east. The village of Hunter was formerly called Edwardsville, and it was incorporated in 1894. So what's really, I think, characteristic. So in the whole Schoharie Valley, you'll see the sedimentary rock, which is worn to bedrock, and we even see that here in the Normanskill, and it's made up of siltstone and shales. And this is the opposite side of Bridge Street in the village of Hunter, looking west. Here in this part of the Schoharie Creek, it's classified A, which means it's safe for drinking water, and then also C, which is for fish propagation and survival. Now we're moving along Route 23A, heading west. And you'll see the Schoharie just down below the road. This is called the Carr Road Bridge, looking east. And if you look at the top of the slide, you'll see Hunter Mountain ski area. I love the name. The original name of Schoharie means floating driftwood. So I like that a lot. So next time you see some driftwood in the Schoharie, think of that. And this is the Carr Road Bridge looking west. Here the major tributaries at different points include the East Kill, the West Kill, Little West Kill, and the Batavia Kill. This was a nice little turnoff. It's a New York State DEC fishing access site near Lexington. And you can see that they stock trout here. And the creek starts turning a bit as we head downhill. But I have two more pictures of the fishing access site. Really a really great spot, to go for a picnic, take your fishing pole, whatever. And then the Schoharie takes a sharp turn at the Vinegar Wildlife Management Area and landing in Prattsville. And what I want to say about Prattsville was actually incorporated not incorporated, but it began in 1824 by a person named Zadok Pratt. And I think Irene is really what put Prattsville, Hurricane Irene, put Prattsville on the map in August 28, 2011. And just to the north of the village proper, Hunterfield Creek also comes in to the Schoharie. But what was, as many of you know, we had 5 to 13 inches of rain, with the highest totals, more like 12 to 13 inches in the Catskill watershed. And that's what caused, this wall of water essentially to roar down into the valley. And why this section of Prattsville was damaged is because it hits that wall of water and then it has nowhere to go but into this area. And then it dissipates the energy until it builds up more energy again further downstream.
What is that tall structure in front of the building?
That's a church steeple. There's a church, and then this must have been an old inn.
It's not in front of it.
No, to the... So now we're heading out of Prattsville, and I'm calling this the Wide Valley. We're entering the Wide Valley, heading north. And here I want to just say, very few rivers, as you might know, flow north. And the reason the Schoharie, as well as the Genesee River and the Oswego River and the Niagara, is because of glaciation. So it disrupted the normal pattern of normally these rivers are flowing south. So this is the Schoharie Reservoir, what we always call the Schoharie Reservoir, and it's on Road 7 in Gilboa. And I don't recommend going on this road unless you have somebody to go with you, because it drops off very quickly on both sides. But as I said before, the water quality is very high here, and this provides 9 million end users in New York City with drinking water. And New York City really has among the best drinking water in the country because of the Catskill reservoirs. And this particular reservoir is managed by the New York City Department of Environmental Protection. So we're heading north a little bit, and here's the Minekill State Park. And also you see the water power project, that's the dam in the background. And this is operated by the New York Power Authority. And it gets its power from a pump storage facility. Oops. Here, which you always, I don't know how many people have been there, you always hear the buzz. And here's the Schoharie Valley. You'll see the notches in the background looking north. And the tributaries here include the Platakill, the Minekill, which is a nice little waterfalls here at Minekill State Park, and then further down the Little Schoharie Creek and Middleburg. So this whole area, including where the headwaters are, was all covered by the Laurentide ice sheet. And here we have the reconstructed Blenheim covered bridge. And whenever I'm there, I always imagine, what that wall of water must have been like as it was moving through here. But we're fortunate that this was able to be rebuilt. This is looking opposite, just across from the covered bridge, looking north. North Blenheim is just a little community to the south of the covered bridge. Was settled in 1797 by the Palatines and the Dutch. I'm guessing that the Dutch came first because everything I can find is that the Palatines came about 1710. There's the remnants of the cornfield in the Breakadine area. So the intermittent flooding that is provided by the Schoharie Creek is what really makes this such fertile agricultural land. And then the valley starts to widen more. This is on the banks of the Schoharie at the town of Fulton Park, which is just south of Shaw's Market. Now we're looking north from this location, and Fultonham used to be called Rabbit's Bush, and it was settled by the Germans in 1714. I'm guessing by that it would be the German Palatines who settled it. And then also I just wanted to talk a little bit. I really just discovered this, the upper fort, the middle fort, and the lower fort in the Schoharie Valley. So near Fultonham is where the upper fort was located. Basically it was a barricaded home, and it was never never attacked during the Revolutionary War, whereas the Middle Fort and Middleburg were, as well as the Schoharie, what we call the Schoharie Fort, which was the lower fort. So now this is north of Fultonham along Route 30. And the creek is behind, the fields. Here we're looking east, and the creek is behind the cornfield. I always look for the black willows, and that's where you'll find, black willows like to have wet feet, so that's where you'll find the creek normally. And here's the iconic Roman's Nose. Romans settled this land in 1711, which interestingly corresponds to probably the time period that the Palatines moved into Middleburg. And I always thought that the Palatines moved down the Schoharie Creek, but I'm convinced that they moved along the base of the Catskill Mountains up from Livingstone Manor into Middleburg, which was their first community, and then spread out from there. And this is also a site of a small Haudenosaunee or Iroquois village. You'll see there's a historic marker which marks that. And the site of the Haudenosaunee village is called Wilderhook. And again, I always thought it was opposite the creek, opposite this side of the creek, but I'm convinced now it's drier here, so they knew where to put their village. Another view of Roman's Nose. And then I took this winter up Cloverwee Road, which I think just gives such a different perspective of Roman's Nose. And just as a place marker, the well-known Octagon House, which was built in 1854. So instead of going along Route 30, I decided to head up Route 57, or it's called Sunnyside Road. So this picture, though, is looking south into the valley, just from where we were. And again, the Middleburg Middle Fort is opposite here. It would be to the left of the picture that you're looking at. And again, the Middle Fort was established in 1797. And it's well known for the Johnson-Grant raid when they were as part of the Revolutionary War. And the first Palatine settlement was here in Middleburg in 1712, and it was called Wiesner's Dorf. Dorf means village, I guess. So the St. Shaw farm fields are here. And as you know, you've heard of the Schoharie Valley being called the breadbasket of the American Revolution, and it's easy to see why. So now we're going to this is off of Route 30, called Frisbee Road on the east side of the creek, and we're looking west. And I think we have a tendency to kind of bypass some of these side roads a lot, as we're on Route 30, but I had to go down it. And just see, it's a lovely little road. And now we're looking southeast as we head towards Schoharie and Bridge Street. And Schoharie was formed as a district in 1772. This is looking north on Bridge Street, and Terrace Mountain is hidden on the left side of your screen. And again, Old Stone Fort was the lower fort, and it was in the Reformed Church, in the High Dutch or German Reformed Church. And it was fortified and then attacked by the British in 1780. This is the same location, looking more northeast, kind of over the village of Schoharie. And now you can see Terrace Mountain. We usually see the Terrace Mountain from coming down I-88, but we can see it here in the background, and the Schoharie heading north. And this is from Bridge Street's bridge, but now south. And then, again, this is looking south, and the creek is on my right. Now we're heading into Central Bridge, and this is Catskills, which is a main tributary to the Schoharie Creek. And Central Bridge didn't grow much until the Albany and Susquehanna Railroad went through in 1863. And this is off to the side of, I'm heading toward Junction Road, which is one of my favorite areas. So again, you see Terrace Mountain in the back, looking south, and so now I'm near Junction Road, near Sloansville. So whenever I'm in this area, I have to take a detour and go on Junction Road. And to me, it always, no matter what time of day, time of year, it always has this milky appearance here. I don't know why. So now we're just south of Sloansville. And Cripplebush Creek contributes to, Cripplebush as well as Fly Creek contributed to some of the flooding from Irene in this area, as well as the Schoharie Creek. And so just another little note back to Sloansville. It was settled by John R. Sloan in the 1750s, as well as the Palatines. And there's an Indian trail that passes by here. You know, I think generally the Indians followed the water bodies, and here it went. From what I've read, it went past. They didn't follow the creek, which when you think of Burtonsville, maybe they didn't want to go in that narrow passage, but they headed over the hill into Canajoharie. But if anybody ever knows anything about that, please let me know. I'd love to hear more. So that Indian trail connected the Schoharie and Mohawk valleys. And now we're in Esperance, our home territory. And I'm by Village Hall here, looking northeast. And Esperance was settled in 1729, and William North gave Esperance its name. I think we heard about that last year, meaning hope. And as a planner, I have to say, I think Esperance has one of the best bones of villages around here. You know, and if anybody's from Esperance, please really respect those bones. I think it's a great little community. This is just a little further north. And again, Esperance was actually incorporated in 1818. And here we're looking at the Route 20 bridge, looking east. So now I'm standing at Priddle Road. Anybody from Priddle Road area? Because I want to be respectful, because I know that several houses were demolished during Irene here, and I'm going to show you why. Because I was puzzled. See, so I'm standing in the Priddle Road, on the Priddle Road side, looking east, and note how wide the Schoharie Creek is here. And that was actually a dry summer. I'm hoping for a drier summer this year. So this is where the water hit most likely. You know, the energy of the water kind of built up as it was moving down, you know, the valley. And every time the creek had a turn in it, it had nowhere to go but hit that wall. So see where it's kind of marked out over here, just above that little baby spruce tree? I figure the creek hit that and then bounced back into the homes that were nearest the creek. Because if you go there, you'll notice that the other homes were not touched. So now this is the final journey of the Schoharie. And although I was at the Cohoes Falls a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, I knew this was coming up, and I thought, wow, the Schoharie lives on, even though it's coming over the Cohoes Falls. So here the valley is really starting to narrow again, and start to feel more closed in. And this is a view of the eastern hill.
Are you still in Burtonsville?
We're just getting to Burtonsville. Here you go. So there were lumber, grist, and carding mills for sheep's wool in the village of Burtonsville along the Schoharie Creek. And Judah Burton Sr. was a major in the Revolutionary War, and he actually settled, though, in Mudge's Hollow, which was Eaton's Corners, just up the hill, and his son actually built the sawmill. This is the eastern section of the bridge, looking south, and the flood of 1870 washed away all three mills, the lumber, grist, and carding mills. I don't know if they were reestablished or not. And this is the site of the DEC fishing access site, looking south in the village of Burtonsville. And here I scrambled closer to the creek. Very similar look. We're all familiar with those stones. And this is looking under the bridge. And interestingly enough, but not surprisingly, there was a morainal plug here in Burtonsville. So during glaciation, there was a plug because there just wasn't enough room for all the sediment to go out. So it stopped here in Burtonsville, and Lake Schoharie grew behind that to the south. And so the valley walls are at its narrowest point here. And that's the old stone bridge abutment from an earlier bridge. And this is looking north in Burtonsville. I got really kind of, not feeling like I wanted to go on what was perceived as private property, because of the incidences that have happened. So that's why you get a lot of road shots. So now, instead of going on the Lost Valley side of things, which I was thinking that I think that when the morainal plug probably burst out of there, a lot of Lost Valley may have been carved at the time along with glaciation. So I headed up out on the west side of Schoharie Creek, up over the hill, and landed on a road called Hughes Road. Anybody ever been there?
Oh, yeah.
And so you see the Schoharie Creek just at the very top there. And again, the Schoharie Creek on the left side. There's a little farm pond here. And this is coming from the Lost Valley area. The Lost Valley would just be to the south of here. And I apologize, I didn't get down there to take any pictures. So I really like this because we normally don't see this view of the Schoharie Creek, and I just love the curve, and you can see that it curves again. There's a sharp curve here just below this hill. because it goes this way, off to the left of the picture. And that's, again, that's looking south. Now we're drawing a little bit closer to Mill Point, looking east here, to the southeast, I guess. And we're in the town of Glen. And again, the Haudenosaunee, which made up the different factions of the Algonquin and Mohawks, lived in this area as well. Now we're coming down the creek. There's a little island here in the middle of the Schoharie. We're coming down the hill to Mill Point, which the Navy brothers settled in 1705. And interestingly enough, it has very loamy soil. Again, not surprisingly, because it was because of the flooding from the creek. And again, we're getting closer to the Mill Point Bridge, looking, I think we're looking north. No, I don't think so. I think we're still looking south. There's the Mill Point Bridge. So now we're looking north. So if you go to the left of the bridge here, you go to Glen here, then you go to the Minaville area. And in time, Irish families moved in, under the auspices of Sir William Johnson. And again, this is looking back under the Mill Point Bridge, looking south. And again, there was a sawmill, a fulling mill, a carding machine, and a woolen factory all at Mill Point Bridge, which you just don't see any evidence of to this day. I don't know if you tromped around, if you could see some of the foundations, but this bridge, before it was rebuilt, obviously, by DOT, the bridge was swept away in 1800, 1804, and 1812. So they really, had a lot going on there.
Excuse me. It also went down in 87 when the Schoharie Creek bridge, Thruway Bridge, fell down. So did that one.
We were just talking about that, when that was and what bridge, because that was 1987
Yes.
that the Schoharie Thruway Bridge
Correct.
fell. So it was
that
Mill
one went
Point.
down almost a week later.
The
Okay.
house took it down.
Say it again?
The house took it down. There was a house that came down the creek
Okay.
from Middleburg and took that bridge out.
I didn't know that.
I watched it. I know.
Yeah. I'll talk to you more about that.
Okay.
And again, this is Mill Point. And we're looking north. The few homes that are here are just to the left of the creek here, from what you see. And now I'm on Glen Road. This is very exciting because Glen Road will take us to Fort Hunter. But do you see the little notch in the first hill? Right here. I believe that's the break where the creek passes to the left of that nose. And just as a note, the Ories Creek and the Chuctanundas do not make their way into the Mohawk River. They have their own entry points into the Mohawk River. And of course the foothills of the Adirondacks are in the back. So now we're on the last part of our journey, and we're at the Schoharie Crossing in Fort Hunter. And actually the first bridge over the creek was here. And English colonists settled it in 1712, but there was also a Mohawk village of Tiandarog, which was called the Lower Mohawk Castle by the colonists. And so the upper Mohawk Castle was actually in the Schoharie area. And so 80 acres were deeded to Jan Petrus Maybe of maybe farm history here in Schenectady. So I don't know if that's the same Maybe, but actually his sons were the Maybe sons that started Mill Point. And now here you have remnants of the old dam where you see the riffles of the Schoharie Creek. And interestingly enough, Queen Anne in the early 1700s ordered, at the request of the Mohawks, to settle German Palatines here in Fort Hunter as protection against the French. And then, unfortunately, they were hurt later on because they didn't pay attention, the Palatines didn't pay attention to the warnings by the Indians. And so when the French invaded, they were taken elsewhere, many of the Palatines. I recommend going and just walking around Fort Hunter. It's a great area. And here's the old railroad bridge in the distance. And here's a sign about the canal dams. The fort was actually, the fort that was built there when the Palatines came was removed, and it was, I guess it was at the time of the Revolutionary War. The fort was removed in 1820 for the construction of the Erie Canal. And that's what makes the Schoharie Crossing so unique, is all three versions of the dam, or of the canals, are evident here, very close by. And that's the first canal right here. I got really good finding bits of the old Erie Canal when I accompanied my daughter and her husband out along the Erie Canal all the way to Lockport. So I had lots of time to wander, and I would find the different old canals. Until after Rochester, then it really kind of stays the same. Just it was widened a little bit. So the canals were widened. So the first canal opened in 1825, the first Erie Canal, and then they were slowly widened from about 1835 to 1880. And so they dug the canals deeper and wider to accommodate larger boats. And then in the early 1920s is when the barge canal came into being. I don't know how many versions of the locks that we have. So we finished our 90-mile journey now. So in the distance, you'll see this is where the Schoharie Creek empties into the Mohawk River. And if you have a bird's eye view of the Schoharie Creek and the Mohawk River, you'll see that they're actually the same width here. You know, I did a lot of work up in the headwaters of the Mohawk River when I worked with the New York State Coastal Management Program and Land Waterways Program. And you see the Mohawk River and the Erie Canal kind of crisscrossing in this location. So, any questions? I'm surprised I made it through, because the last time I did this, I think I took the full hour and a half. Any questions?
I have I don't know if you ever followed in after Hurricane Irene, and there was all the worry about that the dam was going to go and everything. There was an organization that was on the internet called Dam Concerned Citizens. and they had a bunch of what they believed would have happened if the dam had broken. And I believe that they said there would have been a 30 to 40-foot wall
Yes.
of water. I don't know if you follow that,
Yes.
if you read it.
Yes.
That when it came down,
Yeah.
and then by the time it got to the Mohawk, there was going to be so much force, I can't remember how many miles, it was going to push the Mohawk back up to their, up toward Buffalo and that way.
Yeah.
That was very unusual.
Yeah, I do remember that. In fact, with my last state agency, I was at the head triage table with the director of FEMA, and it was up in Wyndham, the village of Wyndham. And that was one of my most interesting experiences, because we were only a week and a half out of Irene, and it started to rain that day. And, it was the last thing people wanted to see was rain, and you could tell just by the looks on their faces, and it was really tragic, but I was glad that, state and federal agencies could be there to help, so come a long ways. But yeah, that's a community organization that kind of follows the...
But it was funny that they, all of a sudden the website disappeared. I don't know, because of a lot of speculation of what they had to say. They didn't want to get people. I didn't really know why. But it was weird that I used to go there. Oh, this is quite to really cut and paste this so I have it for future reference, and then it disappeared.
It could have been taken over maybe a little bit by the other organization whose name escapes me. Carol?
Many years ago, my husband and I took the canoe and went over to Schoharie Crossing and canoed from the Mohawk into the mouth of the Schoharie Creek. And it was fascinating because the levels, the depth in the Mohawk, and then when you went into the creek, it came up just to a depth of about 4 feet.
Yeah, and you'll see the old remnants of the aqueduct.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
Well, 40 years ago, a neighbor and I put a canoe in the Schoharie Creek in Edwards and went to Fort Hunter and to state canal for it. Took us 13 hours.
Wow.
And we found a 4-foot waterfalls on the way too.
There were? No, there were?
Yeah.
Whereabouts were the waterfalls?
North of Burtonsville a little way.
Okay.
Yeah. We shot the balls
Yeah, there's a Mohawk Hudson Land Conservancy has a site up there, and you can pick it up in there. Any other questions? I'm glad you enjoyed it.